Welcome to In the Barracks, a place for prior and active duty service members, first responders, and their friends and family to hang out and talk about life. The Barracks is a place to share thoughts, ideas, accomplishments, and dreams with the goal of encouraging people to stay connected to the world and do the same for others.
I want to thank you for joining us today in the Barracks here on the podcast. And I kind of filled Mike and Tim in a little bit about how we came to find each other, right? And that's through our mutual friend, Randy Ennis. But, you know, when you had seen he was forwarding and reposting some of our podcast stuff, and you kind of keyed in on a little bit and said you'd love to be here. And so happy to have you here. And you and I had a little bit of time to talk before this, but I definitely want to kind of have you share your journey with us and where you kind of came up through the ranks in the military, and then kind of where you are now with the service that you're still doing to the veterans. So with that, could you kind of give us a little bit of background as far as your military service and what brought you through that?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. Thanks, Steve. Thanks, Mike. And thanks, Tim, for having me on. Like Steve had alluded to, I saw the in the Barracks, and I downloaded Bean podcast or whatever it was. Yeah. So I could see it, and I was just like, how cool is this? Just some really cool veterans sitting around, very passionate about issues that pertain to our veteran brothers and sisters today. And so my military career, I joined the Navy. I know, I hold the applause, in 1985. And my first 3 years, fortunately, I was FMF. So I was assigned to the Marine Corps unit. I first started in El Toro at MAG 11, then I went over to MAG 13, and I was so hard charging back then. I had the high and tight. I ran like a deer. Like everybody, like when you're young. And I went to Bridgeport cold weather training. We lived in snow caves, and it was just a great experience. I'm like, I'm too motivated. They're like, well, Doc, you can't swing with the wing. If you want to join the real Marine Corps, go down to Pendleton. So unbeknownst to me, I was like, looking for some more, grit and grime. They said, yeah, we got a spot for you. They sent me to Las Pogas, California. So I had no idea where it was. I remember going in the back gate, and it taking me like 30 minutes to get to. I went through 3 different climate changes. It was absurd. I'm like, the enemy will never find them here because they have completely hid this base from everybody. Yeah. And so with them, I got a lot of good training. Did a couple pumps, went to Camp Schwab, of course, where they send all the newbies, and I was at Foster my second time. But then rejoined the ranks of the Navy. I really wanted to travel, and so with that, I was aboard a couple ships, the USS Challenger, which was a DDG 966, and then the USS Acadia, which was a AD-42. It was more of a supply ship, but did a couple world cruises, been around the world, did a couple Westpacks. And so I was at the 10-year mark, and that's when I was actually working over in Hawaii with Randy at the brig. I was, undecided, about what to do. We went to a law enforcement career day they were having over there, and like the U.S. Marshals, FBI, DOJ, everybody's over there like, what are you doing? Get out. You're like $20 away from getting food stamps here in Hawaii as an E5. Like, what are you doing? I'm like, so, everybody has to make that leap of faith and leave everything that we know and is so secure, because we know that we're, going to get paid twice a month. We know we have medical and dental taken care of. Our families are going to be taken care of. We're going to have a place to live. And so at the 10-year mark, I decided to step out on faith. And I went to, we had come back main side or to the United States and to San Diego originally. And then I took a job with the Department of Justice, working at the penitentiary in Lompoc, California.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So, running, basically fighting criminals for, 5 years, made a ton of money. I mean, the money was great, but I felt like I was doing time with them, at some point.
Wow.
Because, you don't work just an 8-hour shift and maybe 1 or 2 hours overtime. You work 8-hour shift and another 8-hour overtime. So you would work 18 hours, back to back to back. And so I finally, got my degree, during this period. And so I resigned from the penitentiary on Friday, and I started teaching 4th grade on Monday.
Wow. That's a
yeah. I tell people it was a seamless transition. It was almost the same thing.
Yes. It is exactly the same thing. I promise you, I'm familiar with both those things, and you are 1,000% correct.
Yeah. Yeah. So I did that, and, I had to make the transition just financially because I was, at the time, I made like $100,000 in 1998, with DOJ. And then I went to make $37,000 with LA Unified. And so, as Steve probably knows, Randy, we had a little bit of a hustler. So I also coached 7th grade football. I coached high school boys and girls volleyball. I tutored for Silver Learning Center, no child left behind. That's a whole nother story. And so, to kind of make things go. And, I remember just being with the state of California. And at the time, they give you your pink slip on in May, and then they rehire you, at the end of the year so that you're available for unemployment or whatever. But I was just like, I got 6 years with Cali, the state, and I got 15 years, 10 with the military, 5 with DOJ in the federal sector. So I got to get back, to where my retirement will be sooner than later because, I'm getting older. And so I applied for a job with the VA. And got picked up as a GS7, a veteran service representative. Excuse me, I had absolutely no idea what that was. And so went to work, found out I'm going to be, processing disability claims for veterans. I was like, woohoo, strikes home. Can't wait to help my brothers and sisters. What a great mission. It was just chaos for the first couple of years. I just... I had a hard time. I was like, I'm not helping veterans. I'm doing paperwork. It wasn't until a little later on when I kind of learned how to navigate the system did I learn how to kind of involve veterans in their own claims, to partner with them to better themselves, the benefits that they're receiving, and the communication between the Department of Veteran Affairs and the veteran. Because as an agency, that's one thing that when I first got there, I told a friend, I was like, I'm going to call the vet. They're like, oh, don't call the vet. They'll have your phone number. Don't do it. And I'm like, well, I'm thinking to myself, like, doesn't this phone kind of belong to them anyway? I mean, and but that was the mentality back in around 2000. That's
yes.
You see who just hopped in here with us while you're talking? You must have heard your voice.
Oh!
What's up?
Hey, Randall. Beard's looking good, bro.
Yeah, I started dyeing it gray, man. I got tired of people thinking I was so young.
I thought it was blonde. It looks blonde.
What's up, Randy?
Hey, how you doing, brother?
Good, man. Hey, so this is Michael Pritchard here and Dr. Tim Wally. This is Randy Ennis, my old gunny.
Nice to meet you.
Hey, Randy.
Nice to meet you, Randy.
I mean, my young gunny. He's dying in spirit. He's my young gunny.
Yeah.
Yeah. I heard you. Hey, I heard you preaching there, James.
Yeah.
I heard you.
Yeah.
That's good, though, because...
yeah. How's everything going, Randall?
It's going good.
Yeah.
I mean, when I talk about you a little bit, when I was talking to Steve about you, I didn't let him know how many times, I went out working with clients that were looking for homes. And like Sherry, when I hooked her up, she's a spouse of a deceased veteran. And, you reached out to her. And she called me back like, "Oh, so thankful and amazing that people won't help. You know, just don't. They don't know what they're doing."
Yeah.
Wow.
So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
it's really, the agency, I'll say this before I just kind of continue my story. I think especially like we go back as far as like the Vietnam era, the agency just did a very poor job of connecting with the veteran population. And it wasn't until, I'll say our Gulf War later, maybe our OEI veterans, that we realize that they're not just going to arbitrarily come to us. We have to make an effort to make the connection and the relationship work. So instead of giving them a briefing after they come back from deployments or when they're getting ready to exit the military, we decided to say, you know what, we need to reach out to them while they're in the military, make that connection, start the relationship. And we've created a couple programs, Quick Start in our IDES program, that actually says, if you're within 180 days of getting out of the military, we can do your exams and we can start your claim while you're in, so that the day that you hand back your military ID and you get that plaque that says that you're a veteran, you get benefits day one. It's called benefits delivery at discharge. I mean, it just makes sense. I don't know. Hey, I don't know, Randy, I don't know why I didn't think of that.
Because we weren't taught that. Look at it took me like 10 years before I even went after mine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what did dental work look like at that point, James?
So I'll backtrack to when I told Steve, I was actually a dental tech for my first 3 years. So when I saw the mobile dental clinic, I got like super charged up, because we would go to the field. I worked chairside, I did endo, I did ortho, I worked oral surgery. I've worked all the different facets of dental. And when I remember working in prosthetics, and we would have retirees on Thursdays come in, and that was just for retirees. And of course, there'd be a long line, but we'd make partials, we'd make dentures, we'd make everything for them on Thursdays. As I was starting to leave, they started cutting that out. They said, okay, well, now we're just going to see retirees half a day because we're getting too behind, on others. And
where was that?
Yeah.
Where was that?
That was in El Toro, California.
Okay, you're still there. Okay.
Yeah.
And there was a clinic there?
There was a clinic there? Yeah, it was actually the regular clinic, but we saw retirees. It used to be all day on Thursday.
How big was that clinic? How many chairs did you guys have?
Oh gosh, it was huge. It was huge. We had a lab on site where we did the prosthetic stuff. We also had two offices, but we had a whole endo department, a whole surgery department. Okay. Yeah, we had people doing prophies, cleanings.
Is that still there?
I'm sure it is. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. But you know what? Paris Island used to do dependents too, even if and they didn't charge you the Champus Dental thing. And they might have even done retirees at one time. But when I was there in the 80s, I was there like 81 to 84. You could bring your dependents to on base dental. And
good. Okay.
Yep. And I believe they had retirees in that area that they worked on too. It wasn't steady. It was like more of a space available. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Type thing. They did it.
Yeah.
And now dental just sucks. No matter what you got.
Well, yeah. So James, we talked a little bit about it, and I wanted you to kind of explain it further for us. About the process for veterans now regarding dental. I mean, I kind of told you candidly that, we as vets, this podcast is under the umbrella of Vets Mobile Dental Unit, which is our 501c3 dedicated to doing this dental care for veterans. And we're just kind of getting started, and we're just getting moving. We actually I'll just kind of tell you guys, Friday, we received our 501c3 status on Friday. So we're like actually,
guys.
Yeah, and it backdates all the way back to July 9th of last year when we opened the corporation. So it's all backdated, but we're now officially, as of Friday, a 501c3, which is great because now we can start writing grants. I mean, all the things from that standpoint we haven't been able to do.
Yeah.
But with that being said, you know, from an organizational standpoint, when I'm out talking to people about these are the things that veterans qualify for and don't qualify for, I want to make sure that we are speaking obviously clearly and smart and speaking on properly.
Yeah.
And also letting people know that we're not, this organization doesn't have the motive of like saying the VA sucks or, you know, the VA is terrible. They're not doing their job, so they need us. We want to kind of come in as a wingman to the VA and say, hey, look, we're here to kind of support. So with that being said, can you talk a little bit about like the general classifications or qualifications for veterans for dental care?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what a great approach, because there's enough people out there that, you know, will use some negativity for gain or whatever. But really what the agency is looking for is partnership. You know, we do it with our veteran service officers, and, you know, and we need that. And so I'll talk to you a little bit about the choice program, which I mentioned a little bit earlier, but just I sent you, I don't know if I think you got it, was the different classifications of what it takes and what's required to get dental. And unfortunately, even though that's our protocol, what we're finding is a veteran in Massachusetts who has, or say Rhode Island, who has a dental, has the eligibility to receive dental, doesn't have a clinic within 100 miles. They might have to drive to Boston and be seen, you know, on an on-call basis, which is so unfortunate. And so ultimately, we're seeing our supply chain, our need grow, but our resources shrink. And so that's why I'm so interested in what you guys are doing, because what a perfect time to come in, partnership, and provide these benefits that veterans so badly need that the VA we just simply can't provide.
Wow.
Well, I have to say to both of you, thank you very much for doing what you do. And the most powerful gift you get is the passionate commitment that you have to this, because this is what we have to have. And what you're saying to us and what we're filming now is going to awaken people to the idea that there's things that people assume that the veterans have as benefits that they do not. And all Steve and Dr. Tim and I want to do is enhance what VA does. That's what I've done all the time, 48 years. Just go do what you're supposed to do. Just get them some help. Get them some help and let them know there's people out there that love them, because it isn't done just by saluting statues and attending parades. It's actually letting our veterans enough to go out there and take care of them at a stand down, get them familiar with their rights and the obligations the VA can provide to them, and helping them. So thank you both. And I can't tell you how much I appreciate what you've done with your lives for our guys. My dad was an Army officer. All my uncles served in World War II. So I appreciate the both of you in the impassioned work that you do. And you need to hear that from people in America, how grateful we are for who you are and how you chose to live your lives.
Well, and Michael, I mean, you've done that for 40 years, right? And the work that you've done up at the Pathway Home has been invaluable. At the Veterans Home in Yountville.
Those Marsoc Marines were hilarious. And I just getting to teach them comedy and to teach them writing and laughter and to come home and set the pharma down and do the big Dharma thing and just be laughing with all of us in a group. And when we're in there and we had Robin Williams come in and actually narrate one of the films, it was amazing, because that, Tim, you know, as you were with those guys and they all loved you, that kind of work is what we have to be all about. All I want to do is create, as Steve says, a core of people across America that want to help us to help them more, and not have them sitting isolated in a veterans home waiting for the end, but to know that there are people who come in, and not just once a year on the 4th of July to sing a patriotic song, but actually love them enough to take care of their hearts like these two guys do.
Yeah. Wow, Michael. 48 years. When did you start? When you were 7?
Hey, my brother, I love you, but I'm 70 now, you know. I'm so old. Harry Truman was president, but I was alive.
Well, you know, they say laughter is the best medicine, and I think you're proof positive of that.
Well, you want to hear the greatest line ever delivered by a teenager? I had him on probation, and he goes, "I'm tired of everybody telling me what to do. I'm going to join the Marine Corps." I go, "Yeah, nobody will tell you what to do there."
Oh, man.
Too funny.
Would you like your fruit cup before you go up Mount Baldy?
Yeah.
Kids are funny, and I tell them, you know, every once in a while, like with Steve and all the other guys that I've worked with over the years, you just want to enhance their lives and to help lift them up and bring them to that point where they believe in the America that I grew up in. I grew up in a Norman Rockwell, Frank Capra America, and I don't care what's going on right now. I still believe in that America. I was raised by men that Stephen Ambrose, the great historian, said, when it came to World War II, we sent our best. They did their best, and the world was saved from evil.
Very well said. I think it was the greatest generation. I don't know if you read Tom Brokaw's book, but I think he's spot on. We look from the VA standpoint of our World War II veterans, obviously because of the way they were received, unlike our Vietnam veterans coming back. You know, they were given opportunities, they were given education, they were given, you know, housing loans, and so they assimilated back into the population very well. And so as far as benefits, our World War II veterans never came in and asked for anything until they got into their 80s. And guess what they asked for? Hearing aids.
Yeah.
Wow. Isn't that something?
Whatever we can do to supplement and help these younger men and women thrive.
Yeah.
You know?
Jim and I have already been doing that up at the thing, and Steve as well, because of the work we do. I remember this line that Katie Couric was interviewing Stephen Ambrose, the writer-professor, and asked him what one word would define the World War II guys and women. And without any hesitation, Ambrose said modesty. They were modest people. They never wanted to get credit. They wanted to give credit. And that's something that humble life is something we need to teach our kids now, because it's really important for them to understand service and sacrifice, and what the operating platform that a lot of the technology kids get is paid for by the sacrifice of good women and men over the years who gave all. So it's important to remind them the reason you get to operate from America is because of that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So Dr. Tim, what kind of dentistry are you able to provide in the mobile unit?
Well, I think initially we're obviously going to be doing just some triage stuff, getting people out of pain and that sort of thing. But I think our goal as we evolve and mature is to, try and implement, if we can get a CEREC, a CAD CAM, we could be doing crowns on site. My goal would be to be placing some implants here and there if we could, either minis or full diameter implants. And then, like Steve and I have talked about, if we can have some follow-up care where we can actually be making partials and dentures for for guys and gals that, you know, we'll see you in a month sort of thing, where we can have them back and do some follow-up and follow these people. So, you know, those are high expectations, but I don't see, you know, looking for sponsorship again through some of the dental supply companies and whatnot. And we're in negotiations as we speak. And, you know, the sky's the limit. But, you know, initially, if we can just get guys and gals that can have a restful night's sleep and whatnot, and without being in pain and struggling with whatever other issues they're dealing with as well.
You know, James, I work the streets a lot with veterans, and the two big issues for a lot of homeless vets and folks in struggle out there in poverty are dental health and mental health, self-isolating, and the homelessness that comes from mental health. And then the dental health plays into it, because a lot of times the sleeplessness and the other stuff begins there. You know this, because of the work you do.
People don't realize if your teeth or your feet hurt, you're in pain. If one of the two are bothering you, and that's why you look back, you know, impacted wisdom teeth were a factor in World War II. So when you join the military soon thereafter, the first thing they do, what do when you go to dental? Pull your wisdom teeth. And so, you know, that was a proactive way to keep our soldiers and Marines, you know, out in the field without having to worry about, you know, wisdom teeth becoming impacted and that sort of thing. So you're absolutely,
my father practiced dentistry for 40 years, and then my grandfather on my mom's side practiced dentistry in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. He actually stormed Omaha Beach.
Oh, wow.
But my father was in the Navy after he got out of dental school in the late 60s.
Yay.
So he
I got the Navy shirt.
There you go, James. Yeah, and so what my dad did. Yeah, Marines still need the T-shirt. We already got it.
Hey, if it wasn't for us giving you a ride where you needed to be, you guys would be stuck with the Army or something.
Yeah, thanks for the lift. Yeah. So my dad went up to. We were all trained at the same institution at Creighton University, a great university in the Midwest. And anyhow, he went up to the Great Lakes, and he was in charge of the oral surgery clinic up there for a couple of years. And you know, and so he was triaging those guys and taking out their wisdom teeth before they went over to Vietnam and whatnot. So I heard all about that, you know, when I was growing up and whatnot. And so,
Well, Doc, I have to ask you, I was born without wisdom teeth. Is there something wrong with me?
Michael, I could have told you that. I suspected something was wrong.
It's all coming to fruition now.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe they just thought you were wise enough, Michael. You didn't need wisdom teeth.
That's right. Hey, you make up for it in many other ways, my friend.
Yeah.
Well, I am from Missouri, where we have a 2-tooth minimum, and I love it.
Not necessarily the front two either, right? Just two. Up, lower, mandibular, maxillary, doesn't matter.
No. But
I
love the fun and the joy, and that's what we're all about here in the barracks. And this is what we need to evolve to, so people can get familiar. Because while you're distributing information to people, we need to be laughing and explaining to folks that there's ways that we can become the medicine for the veteran out there that's isolated and lonely.
Yeah.
So be the medicine.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, part of our goals and mission and just overall umbrella that we want to throw out as an organization is not just, I mean, obviously it starts with the dental care, but something that came up early on for Tim and I was, you know, the organization that gave us the trailer, because they gave it to us, you know, was around for almost 30 years, and Tim had volunteered for them for many, many years and created a relationship with them. But part of our first conversations were how, Tim would drive down to Salinas, when the Pebble Beach golf tournament was going on, because it was sponsored. The previous organization, Christina Smile, was sponsored by the PGA and Senior PGA Golf Tour. So they would go to nearby cities wherever the tour was, and then they would park the trailer, and then they'd have dentists come and volunteer for a day or two to do the work. And that was the business model, right? And it's going to be ours as well as we move around. We'll have our core group that runs the organization, but then we'll have voluntary dentists come in and hygienists to do the work. But I remember Tim had said that, he'd go down there and work and then come back up to Napa knowing that some of those kids that he took care of, they're going to need that follow-up work a month later or 6 months later. And he felt kind of stuck, because then they're relying on the local dentist to possibly do that work, after the organization was long gone out of town. So a big part of what we want to create is a network, not only in the dental, but then also all of the resources that veterans need. And it kind of segues me into what Randy's doing even with real estate. I know that you got into real estate. If you want to talk about that, Randy, I don't know how many years ago, but I've seen just through like Facebook, and even when I saw you a couple of years ago when I was down there in Temecula and we hung out for a little bit, you were going from real estate to kind of honing in around the veteran side, because I think you'd noticed a lack of, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it seemed like you kind of noticed a lack of knowledge and of resources that are out there for veterans. Is that true?
Yeah, there is. And I got a really good VA lender that I work with. A lot of them don't know the programs that are available to them for sure. But the other thing is, like when I was going through, the younger crowd is a little more knowledgeable on, we should buy a house. It is a great investment. It's going to, we're going to get our money back. We're going to do stuff. When I grew through there, we didn't have the money to do that. They're making pretty good money to be able to afford now and to move forward. They just need to know what the VA programs. There's great VA loans out there. They don't know that they could get in with nothing down. Actually, I bought this place with $1 down. I mean, I didn't play, and they don't know either that if you have disabilities and you're getting a compensation, that there's fees that are waived. And if you don't have a good VA lender, if you don't have a lender don't care about them, they could be stuck. They're stuck for extra money. But I started with Semper Fi Homes, and I really like him. He's a former Marine too. I do definitely promote to veterans. I've helped several from overseas come in, PCS, and they don't have anybody where they're at. So, go out, video home for them, send it to Okinawa. Let them call 2-3 in the morning and make sure they're treated right.
Yeah. I think that's going to be an important thing for us moving forward is making sure that we also have a network of, anything. I mean, I feel like, if we can be kind of a conduit to all the different types of resources out there,
outreach,
it'd be good. It'd be good for everybody. So, I feel fortunate that just between the team, we seem to know a lot of people that are leading to other people, like we started with you, James. It was because Randy took our post of one of our previous podcasts and forwarded it out, and you saw it. And now you're here today talking about VA benefits and offering to kind of help us out with, which happens to be one of, our main mission, the dental side. So I mean, it's incredibly fortunate, I feel, that you found you that way.
What I want to share with you guys is that there's, in the Bay Area, like right now, when I'm thinking about this, Zuckerberg gave $1 billion to help with the homeless. A guy named Mark Benioff from Salesforce gave $300 million, and this young guy from St. Louis who runs Twitter, Jack Dorsey, just donated $1 billion again, and that's for COVID, which includes many of our veterans' homes and things like that. What are ways we can use to educate? So our donor base, our philanthropy group out there, you guys just have to step out and believe that your voices can be heard on podcasts like this, because we can get them to help ally and asset not just the VA, but the veteran themselves and their families. So I urge you guys to step out and tell your stories, because both of you, James and Randy, you have great stories. Helping veterans with housing, helping veterans right now find their rights and legitimate things. Really important work, guys. Really important.
Yeah. Well, and along those lines too, Michael, I think we just found out that Governor Newsom is looking to close another veterans home down in Southern California. Where's that one? You guys didn't, not Barstow, but there's one down in, I think down by Mojave.
Hey, it's huge too. It's a huge.
Yeah. So, and I know what it looks like to grow up in a community, you know, of veterans. I grew up in this town of Yountville. The veterans home's been here since 1884 or whatever it is. And, you know, these guys are part of our community, gals, and they've been in, you know, they've been in this community for forever. And to have one of those institutions close it's devastating to that community, and not only to the community, but to the veterans, especially the veterans.
Yeah.
The symbolism behind it is to remind people that we cannot forget what we have been given as a gift, freedom. And the most powerful gift you get is to be able to ice with all politicians. Intervene, confront, enlighten. Don't blame them. Don't accuse them. Don't try to shun or shame or attack, because blame is me at the end with blah, blah, blah in front. And what works better than anything is to enlighten them and to tell them this should not be. And I think sometimes voices of veterans who have experienced those closures are just as important, and to find ways through technology how to present those voices to people and say, you know, guys like you two, perfect examples of how to find that voice out there. There's so many that need just to hear, and those politicians will listen. When you come passionately and honestly, it works. Yeah. It does.
Yeah.
We, Tim and I were out at the, so at the VA hospital there in Yountville that he's talking about. They have a little 9-hole golf course kind of right on the grounds of it. And then of course a little clubhouse where you can eat, and a little bar and everything. We were out there 6 months ago, just went out and played 9 holes, and then went in to have lunch after. And there's this guy that kind of came in. He had a Marine Corps cap on, and he's making the round, social butterfly, you know, the whole place. And we said hello and everything. And then as we got up to leave, we're walking out, and he said, "Oh, you're taking off?" I said, "Yeah, Marine, we're out of here." He goes, "Oh, Marine Corps?" I said, "Yeah." So we kind of started talking about that, and then he just goes right down the row, and he's just like, he's Marine, he's Nate. You know, of course, everyone there seemed to be connected, veterans. And he said, "Well, what do you do?" And I said, "Well, we have a new nonprofit," and this, I kind of just gave him the quick elevator pitch on what we're going to be doing. And he said, "Well, when can I sign up?" And then the next guy, me too. I mean, just right as we're standing there, there's 3 or 4 guys just within 5 feet of us that all needed it, and they're right there at this hospital that, as Tim said, has been there since the 1800s. And now you're thinking about closing hospitals, and even me not knowing, I think, oh, why would somebody that's living at the VA hospital need dental care? Isn't that taken care of there? Right, exactly. I see you shaking your head, James, but I'm like, but that's me thinking that, and I'm like starting this organization with Tim. So what does the general public think?
Yeah, and again, what these guys and gals provide for this community is invaluable. We just lost an old timer I saw in the paper a while back. This old gentleman, Bill, I think he was an Army guy, and he was notorious for just coming into the famous restaurants in the Napa Valley up here and walking in and telling jokes, and he was just kind of a character in the community, and everybody fell in love with Bill, and now Bill's gone. But there's a whole cast of characters out there in these communities that have served and are invaluable to that community. So
I always call them these statues of freedom. They have in their soul, they possess wisdom and knowledge of what we lived through in order to provide freedom. And it's important for people in the community to be consistently reminded of this, because we all know, I mean, we all say it's not a platitude. Freedom ain't free.
Right.
And the first thing that anybody heard when I don't need Peggy Noonan to write me "The Boy's a Point Too High." I sat with many men who took those cliffs and cried with them and laughed with them, because what we have now going on with a lot of our vets isn't post-traumatic stress disorder, but present traumatic stress disorder. And they need for us to hear their voices and their sorrows. And one of the great things is unaddressed grief can turn to anger and rage because they feel like folks are indifferent. And America cannot afford indifference, for sure.
No.
We can't look the other way to our veterans.
Yeah.
It costs them too much and their families too much. So that's why guys like you are really important to this, and we need to be stepping out of the shadows of worrying about what people say or do and bringing light to this and enlightening these politicians and holding them accountable in a good way. I don't want to put them down or blame them or get involved in their politics. That's not what I'm about. I say take care of the wounded, keep moving, lots of wounded. Life is trio.
Yeah.
James, I feel very privileged to have you here. I want to kind of say that if it hasn't come clear yet.
Oh, thank you.
Having someone from the VA on here with us, at this stage of where we are with our organization as well, we had to kind of pump the brakes a little bit when the shelter in place stuff came on, but we've continued our momentum regardless. And I feel like the knowledge we're gaining now as we move back out there and as we bring our trailer up here, it's going to be, in the end, it's going to set us up for greater success. But what I wanted to know was, do you have what could you share with us as an organization that we need to know, should know, or want to know moving forward as we start working with veterans who have certain feelings about the VA, how the VA's treated them? How can we help? How can we help? How can we help more?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I'm humbled. Thank you for having me on the show. I started off as a fan. Now I'm a big fan. So, listening to Mike and Dr. Tim and yourself, Steve, and also Randittle, who's my lifelong best friend. By the way, Michael, I'm stealing ICE. I love that acronym. I love what it stands for. It stands for action. And you're right. To take an adversarial role versus an angry role is the best way to partner. And I spoke with Steve a little bit about a program that I think we can benefit from moving forward. And I know Dr. Tim talked about using the USG or GA, the golfing tour as a sponsorship. But the VA actually partnered with our out-of-town community providers, because just like what Michael said, our biggest deficits in providing health coverage are mental and dental. These are two areas that a veteran can't afford to wait 45 days for an appointment. It just can't happen. Now we've gone for someone who might need somebody to talk to flooding the suicide hotline, because 45 days is just an unsatisfactory amount of time to have to wait. And to that, if you're in pain, if you have an abscess, or you can't wait for 2 months for a dental appointment. So that abscess is not going to wait. Yeah. And go ahead. Yeah. And so we set up this program. It's called that uses kind of a voucher system. And so basically what it was set up and meant to do was, if a veteran goes to the VA hospital, sees their regular physician or provider, and the provider deems that there's what we call specialized help needed, whether it's mental, whether it's dental, they give them basically a voucher and say, take this voucher out in town and show it to the providers, basically a promissory note from the government that you give the veteran these services which were referred by their primary physician, and we, the government, will pay your bill. And so it started off, on a blaze of fire. It was working really well. It just wasn't funded enough. And so it kind of slowed down because the providers were getting a little upset that they weren't getting paid timely, or in some cases weren't getting paid at all. But this program, I think, would be great for us to get involved with, because every physician, I mean, getting the referral is the easy part. And so I think getting into this program would also be a great way to get some sponsorship to where we could cover costs, you know, do some marketing and increase what we're doing × 3.
I think, you know, James, you're absolutely right. And I think partnering with the government, the VA, and with corporate and community partnerships and healthcare providers who can step up and see maybe adding discounts in, that's where we need to live with our veterans and help them, so that they know that they're guaranteed for life, and their families know they're guaranteed for life, that we actually do care and will step up to make sure their dental and mental health is addressed. So good. And you know what? Just for you, because you have done all these things, working in corrections and all these things, you're a good man, sir. You're a great.
Thank you.
I'm saying that.
Hang on. I want my wife to hear you say that. Can you hang on for just a second?
You know what Jim Carrey said? Behind every great man, there's a wife rolling her eyes.
James, if you look at his Facebook post, he is like the most in love you'd ever picture a person. And for people like, I mean, that's not that I'm not sentimental, but he makes it hard for us to try to keep up.
Oh, whatever.
The candy and the vacations and the hotels and oh my Lord, they have, and coronavirus, they're having date night in the back of a Jeep out in the
Hey, happy wife, happy life, Randy. You haven't learned that yet?
Hey, I remember your first one.
Yeah. Hey, everybody needs a practice one. Everybody should try it once.
That was a practice, right?
Yeah.
Hey, there's that word practice again there, Gatlin.
Oh, practice, yeah.
I seem to be practicing a lot of things.
I won't let my wife join his Facebook page. If she sees that, I'm done.
I don't know if anyone else caught it, but Randy a few minutes ago threw out Steve always had something going on, and I just want to say that this is the guy that would get off work at 5 o'clock from the brig, go get in his ice cream truck, and then drive around the base selling ice cream. Okay, so that's Randy. Okay.
Oh.
Hey, I'll tell you the other thing I mentioned. That we always had something going on, though. It wasn't just, it was everybody. At one time, I texted this one. I was stationed in Okinawa. Me and James used to sell supplements. We lifted pretty. I lifted pretty heavy back in the day too. And although when I retired, it was easy for me to stop lifting for some reason. That day, I think I got out of the gym, but James kept on. But we used to sell supplements, and I got in Okinawa, and no Marines had. So they didn't have supplements over there, you know. Even the PX had a really small amount. So me and James like, hey, let's get this. We'll get some wholesale supplements. So we sent over. You probably sent over a pallet of stuff, huh, James? and about 10 grand worth of supplements. Well, cases of drinks busted open in the post office on base, so it ruined everybody's mail because it was protein drinks. You know what I mean? So and it was FPO. So the postmaster calls me down and says, "What are you doing?" I said, "Well, you know, we have supplements coming up. You can't run a business out of FPO. We're sending everything back except anything that comes in the future. We're coming back." But the Marines were hurting so bad for supplements. Anyhow, I go to leave, and this Lance Corporal, I'm like a staff sergeant, runs up to me. He says, hey, all right, Sergeant. He's like, hey, I'll make sure you get everything as long as you sell me some stuff that comes in. I'm like, you got it. But we went through that. We did that, and we did a lot of stuff, man. Like cars.
Running a supplement business through the post office in Okinawa. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And then me and James in Hawaii, we buy this Volkswagen. We're buying cars. We're fixing them and flipping them. Yeah. So I'm at home one day, we buy a Volkswagen. We put an engine in his Volkswagen. I'm at home. I get a call. He's like, hey, the Volkswagen caught on fire. I said, what are you doing, James? He goes, washing it. How the hell? Catch on fire washing it.
Randy was the mechanic in the relationship, and I was the salesperson.
Oh, yeah, you was.
Whoa.
We did a lot together. But that's how the military is, too. Like, because he seen my kids grow up. I seen his kids grow up. You know, we just became family. So,
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And that's what people need to, you know. I love that line by Robert Frost. Home is that place you go where they have to let you in.
I love it, Michael. I love it.
Yeah. And then, man, I think, Steve, you probably were, I think you did meet James. Do you remember me and him had a boat in Chula Vista? He lived on that boat. It was at Liverpool.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. You did meet him, man.
Yeah, man.
We got this boat. We joined the yacht club. We're the two brokest people in the world. We buy this boat, and we joined the California Yacht Club.
We had to start talking like this. Hello, fellow boat owner.
So this boat has two 318s on it, and one of them's need to be rebuilt. So we're pulling engine parts out while it's docked. All these people with $100,000 boats are looking at us. We're just nasty as hell. It was just crazy times, man.
Oh, then the Clampets came in and joined the yacht club.
We have a female doc. What was she called? Yachtman, the person that ran the office. What do they call them? That female member? Like
she was like the lease manager or the office.
Yeah, but they had a name for some ship name, some yacht person name. But anyhow, she got a little pouch. She was really thin, but she had a little pouch. And James says, "Hey, they don't like us anyhow." He says, "Hey, how far along are you?" She's like, "I'm not pregnant." I think this is we got.
One thing you do not ever say to a woman you're not sure if they're pregnant or not is, "Oh, how far along are you?" When she looked at me and said, "I'm not pregnant," I went like this.
Oh,
there was at that point there was nothing you could do. Just like
no,
yeah. We know, and then he's a big dude. You can't see him on here. He lifts all the time. He's big. We got done working on the boat. My two sons were young. They didn't come. It was Courtney. It was your daughter, actually. She was really little. So we get done, and I said, "Hey, I'm going to run into a grocery store, get us some food. Just stay here." And I come out. Seriously, it wasn't 5 minutes. I think I picked up like a pizza or something, and he's in the back of a cop car. And here's his daughter, Courtney, crying in the back of the car. I'm like, what the hell happened? Apparently, she locked the door, and he was trying to get in, and they thought he was busting in. But the size of him, they thought he's busting in the car trying to get his kid. I'm like, we just can't break.
It's always good to have a gunny there to vouch for you.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I had to do a lot of vouching.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you something, Gunny. Was Steve Gilligan at the yacht club?
No, but I'll tell you, here's the thing. Steve always has to
with us. I'm the skipper.
Yeah.
And Doc is the professor.
I like it. I like it.
And then, Steve at the time, you were the brewmaster, man. Everybody was getting beer from you back then. I remember that.
We were running. Me and Glenn. So Summer's husband, Glenn, Summer Watson.
Right.
Yeah, Glenn Watson.
Yeah.
Summer's been on our show here, and
she's awesome.
She's part of our crew. But yeah, Glenn and I, we used to brew every Saturday. We'd go and we'd make a 5-gallon batch of some kind of beer every Saturday, and I had a list going. So I'd say for $20, I'll give you a case of beer, like a case of whatever kind of beer you want. And so we actually used that as a way to learn how to make all the different styles. But I had a list going. I'd go up to somebody, whoever, and say, "Hey, so you're up this week, what kind of beer you want?" They'd say, "Oh, Hefeweizen or IPA or whatever." And then we'd go down Saturday, we'd buy all the ingredients, we'd make the batch of beer, and then about 5 or 6 weeks later, it'd be ready. So we had a rotation going for, God, a long time. I mean, a long time. We made a lot of beer, but we would give them a case, and then we'd get another case plus out of it. And the whole batch of beer cost like $26, $27. So we were getting our beer for, basically $10 or so. And it was kind of funding our thing, but I was making T-shirts and
yeah, you Shifu brew.
We called it Shifu brew.
Shifu brew.
Well, gentlemen, thanks so much for joining us here this morning. It's great to catch up with you guys, and I want to hear more stories about Gatlin.
Yeah.
You guys got a lot of you got a lot of dirt on Gatlin.
All right.
The legend of Gat Daddy.
Yeah.
Gat Daddy.
I love it.
All right.
Well, let me say this, guys, and in closing, I know that it looks like America is in a little bit of a rough patch right now. We'll get past this, and we'll get past this because of men like you and the people that are in the military that are the core glue. And I'm grateful that you were on the show, but I'm also grateful for your lives and your family's lives that let you do what you did and continue to do what you're doing now, because you know that you just live service, and I'm grateful. And Tim and Steve are like that, and that's why we're a great cohesive group that you just got to go out there and, like you say, life is a verb.
Yeah, for sure.
So thank you both for what you do. I'm going to leave you with this poem in this time of anger out there. And it's written at the end of the Civil War. It's written by Longfellow. And in despair I'd hang my head. There is no peace on earth, I said, for hate is strong and mocks the song. Peace on earth, goodwill to men. But then I heard the bell peal loud and deep. God is not dead, nor does he sleep. The wrong shall fail, and the right prevail, with peace on earth, goodwill to men.
Wow. Wow.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate all you guys. Thank you so much.
Very nice. Thanks for having us. Let me know if there's anything I can do for the team moving forward. I'm happy to join in or collaborate or volunteer.
Thank you for joining us in the Barracks. To learn more about our hosts, guests, and how to support Vets Mobile Dental Unit, visit www.inthebarracks.org.